I've known Martha for many years. Her mother and my mother were very good friends. Martha was always the busy one, and she usually got very frustrated with Mary, who just couldn't understand the need to tidy or clean or cook. Whenever Jesus visited the house, and he did often, Martha would rush around expecting Mary to help. Martha loved to serve and feed people, even if it meant taking her away from her guests. Mary, on the other hand, was happy to sit and listen to the rabbi teaching about the holy things. Martha would get really exasperated, and one day she spoke to Jesus about the fact that Mary just sat and listened. He wasn't very impressed with her complaint and basically said it was okay for Mary to stay where she was. It was some time after Jesus' visit when Lazarus had been so ill. In fact, he died, and he was in the tomb for 4 days. Well, Jesus had come and he'd called Lazarus out of the grave. Well, that set tongues wagging, and people began to wonder who this man Jesus was. They said this time Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem, but things were a little tense in the city, so he'd escaped to Bethany with his friends. He was having supper, and again Martha was rushing around with food, and she'd asked me to help serve as she knew Mary would be out listening to Jesus. Everything was going well. There was plenty of food, and people were talking and obviously enjoying the meal. When Mary got up, and she produced an alabaster jar, I looked at Martha, but she shook her head. We both watched as she broke the jar, and she poured the perfume over Jesus' feet. The jar had been filled with an extremely rare and costly perfume. Everyone stopped eating and started watching. The smell of the perfume filled the room, and it would have been worth a great deal of money. Possibly it may have been used for Mary's dowry when she would have got married. Then she knelt down by Jesus' feet and began to wipe their feet with her hair. Looking around the room, I saw some people were shaking their heads and tutting. Other people were muttering about the value and how it would have been used to help the poor. But Jesus just continued to sit and allowed Mary to clean his feet. It was a strange moment. He wasn't upset or distressed by what she was doing. In fact, I think he quietly appreciated the gesture. Such an extravagant gesture, which totally showed Mary's love and devotion for him. The verses in Song of Songs, chapter 8, verses 6 and 7, talk about love. Put me like a seal on your heart, like a seal on your arm. Love is as strong as death. Jealousy is as strong as the grave. Love bursts into flames and burns like a hot fire. Even much water cannot put out the flames of love. Floods cannot drown love. If a man offered everything in his house for love, people would totally reject it. I don't think for one moment that Mary saw this as anything more than her showing Jesus how much she loved him. She saw something in Jesus that perhaps other people didn't see. His great compassion, his generosity of spirit, his love for people. It is possible that when they crucified Jesus on the cross a few days later, the smell from that costly perfume just lingered for a while, and it might have just reminded Jesus of her love, her devotion, and the extravagant way she had demonstrated it to him.